Hey, before we get to the show, I want to do a quick shout out and a thank you to Kravit Inc. for sponsoring the podcast. I want you to know that it's time to discover luxury for less with Kravit Furniture's popular upholstery trio, the Jazz, Porter, and Taylor. Now, with improved pricing and faster production times, these stylish frames are available with a 6-week turnaround. Can you imagine furniture in 6 weeks? Kravit's exceptional service combined with great pricing makes them the perfect choice for your next interior design project. Go to kravit.com to learn more and sign up for your design trade account today. Welcome to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Today's episode is a tiny bit different in the best way. I'm not the one hosting the conversation. Today, I'm the guest. Over the years, I've had the privilege of being invited onto some incredible podcasts, conversations where with that host, we've dug into business, mindset, leadership, and the real lessons that I've learned from decades in this industry. So in this special crossover series, I'm sharing with you some of these episodes from other podcasts brought here to my podcast feed. These are powerful conversations that often offer a different lens, because when I'm in the guest seat, you might hear different stories, different angles, and new insights that don't always come up when I'm the one asking the questions. And you know what the bonus is? If you like what you hear in this particular episode, I highly encourage you to check out that host's show, right? So you might like more of their episodes, and we will link their podcast in the show notes and more about them as well in the show notes so that you can now begin to learn from them and their brilliance as well. All right, let's get into it. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it.
Hello, my name is Michelle, and you're listening to Profit is a Choice. On our show today, we have LuAnn. Many of you know her as the podcaster for the #1 design industry podcast, A Well-Designed Business. LuAnn is also a co-owner of Window Works in New Jersey, and she's a best-selling author and a speaker, and to even call her energetic doesn't feel like enough. So you'll notice that in our conversation today. We're going to spend our time together talking about excellence. LuAnn's tagline, if you will, the banner that she kind of carries is that excellence is a decision. And so we're going to look at what does it really mean to be excellent, and how can we define that for our own individual business? And then why does it even matter? And we're also going to dig into what it really means to own our company, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so get ready, because this is a super high energy interview today. And I know I was excited to talk to her. And as you can tell, she's going to be awfully excited to talk to me. So enjoy. Every day, empowered entrepreneurs are taking ownership of their company financial health and enjoying the rewards of reduced stress and more creativity. With my background as a financial software developer, owner of multiple businesses in the interior design industry, educator, and speaker, I coach women in the interior design industry to increase their profits, regain ownership of their bottom line, and to have fun again in their business. Welcome to Profit is a Choice. Hey, LuAnn, welcome to Profit is a Choice.
Michelle, I am just so happy to be here with you. I, first of all, want to congratulate you and ask you if I should take your temperature for launching a podcast. I'm just
Exactly.
no, seriously, congratulations. I have no doubt that your podcast is going to be exceptional.
Thank you. I have to tell you, I think I mentioned even before we jumped on here, it's been a couple of years in the making. I found out by doing my research the second time that I'd done most of it 2 years ago and put it on the shelf because at that time my business looked different, right? The work that I was doing in my business was taking up a different amount of time. And I had some other goals that I really wanted to accomplish first. And now I've dusted off all those notes and decided to launch. And there was no way I could think about launching without calling you. I just I've got to talk to LuAnn. I just think, so I'm thankful that there's room for everybody. And I'm just thankful that you were so willing to come on and then to be so supportive, of the conversation about profits. I know it matters to you and to your company, and you certainly push it in your podcast about profitability and in your book. And so just the opportunity to have the conversation with you today, I mean, I'm almost like a giddy schoolgirl.
No, it's a mutual thing, Michelle. The very first time that I'm not recalling off the top of my head who recommended you to me.
I think Kate Grunke.
Was it?
Yes,
Oh,
I
so
think so.
okay, that's interesting because I was thinking it was the other way, but you are right. You are exactly right because you coached Kate. I don't know if you still do, but you did, and
Yes.
she recommended you to me. And I have said this more times over the last 2.5 years. I have enjoyed every interview I have done with every single designer, industry person, and outside business expert that's come on the show. But there are a dozen or so people that when you talk with them, you just know that they truly innately understand the proper way to run a business. And you were one of those people for me that first year. And that's why I invited you back to talk about do you remember the story about the Profit First?
I do.
I had read the book and I was listening to Mike's podcast and I thought, I got to get Mike on this podcast. I got to teach, get these designers exposed to Profit First. This is such an amazing concept. I love it. And so then I started Googling and reading about his website. And then it's like, oh, find a Profit First certified professional. And I was like, wait a second, Michelle Williams. I was like, let's just go right back there. So I truly admire, the way you conduct every aspect of your business. In this last couple of years, we've had the pleasure of doing lots of things together, and you are just always so on it. You're just very organized. You are the girl who says she's going to do what she's going to do, and you do it. And I admire you very much for that, Michelle. I truly do.
Oh, thank you so much. So, LuAnn, tell us a little bit about your podcast and the goal of your podcast.
My podcast, Michelle, is called A Well-Designed Business. And basically, my podcast is specifically geared to interior designers to help them better understand that 80% of owning an interior design firm that has nothing to do with the pretty pillows and the fabrics and the scale and the proportion, because the schools do a very good job, and it's very important for the interior design schools to teach interior designers multidisciplines as far as surface design and textile design and spatial planning and commercial design and residential design and all these other things. But so little time is left over in that education for teaching them how to run a business. And what I learned in my experience in 36 years of running Window Works with my husband and our cousin is that many of the interior designers that we work with, they are not profitable. And it has nothing to do with their talent as an interior designer. And in fact, quite frankly, some of the designers that have much lesser skills as a designer are often profitable. So it's clear that the relationship isn't based on the talent, at least not enough. It's really primarily based on their ability to run a thoughtful business with sound principles. And I'm very passionate about helping them do that and being one little small piece of that puzzle for them. And so I love to bring all of the information shared by our colleagues, different designers that have overcome an obstacle or a hurdle or a challenge or learned a lesson, or from industry experts like yourself that coach interior designers and that understand profitability, all the way to outside business leaders, Adam Urbanski and some of these others that come from outside our field that have been so valuable in helping us to have this conversation.
I love how you say, the 20% is the pretty part. And that's true. And I think the sad part is that many are coming into this industry, creative industries in general, and there is only 20% that's the pretty stuff, right? The fluffing and the design. And that 80% is a lot, and it can be draining. And, I've gone in probably the same as you, and I've spoken at some of the local colleges in the interior design programs, and they are not teaching these young professionals how to do that business piece. I'm not saying they don't introduce them to it. I almost wish they had a joint entrepreneur track to go with it, because it's so important. I thought it was so important that my son was a construction major in the engineering department at his school. And I said to him, if you've ever thought about starting your own company or owning your own company I said, please go back and get a business degree. I'll pay for it to get a second.
Right.
And he did. He went back a second year, stayed in school a second year, and got a finance degree. And I am telling you, because construction is just like interior design, it's just the exterior of the building, right? Exactly. It's the same thing. And I just said to him, I'm just like you. I've been teaching my pricing without emotion course for 10 years in this industry. And, I've been carrying the flag of, we don't have to do all of this and give away our talent, making beautiful things for people that are wealthy in a luxury market and not be able to pay our own bills. That is absurdity to me.
Exactly.
Yet we have this high tolerance for low pay. Mike calls it in Profit First, entrepreneurial poverty.
Right. It's so true.
And it is so painful. It is so painful. And that really is kind of I would say the push behind my podcast is how to just think of everything as how it relates to profit. And I'm not just talking about the number, but all of our choices add up to either make us profitable or not profitable. And we get to make those choices.
Yes, that's the truth. That's every day. We are in charge of ourselves. And so what I say on my show, I end the show, decide to be excellent. Like, what are you going to decide to do today? What are you going to decide? You're going to take an action, or you're just going to put it in a notebook and it's a list. You know what I'm saying? You have to be accountable to yourself. And the point is that you don't have to be in your own business in order to be an interior designer, right?
Right.
If you have no interest in tracking the profitability and tracking where your money goes and how it's spent and what the margins are, then work for somebody happily for a 30 or 40-year career. There's no shame in it, right? There's no shame in it. And so the thing but if you've made the decision to open a firm, then make the next decision to be accountable and to do it to your best of your ability and to not do it as a hobby and say to yourself, it's a business.
And LuAnn, that's exactly why I think you and I have a love fest going on, is because we believe the same things. I just believe if we're going to start a business, we have to own it. We have to own our stuff. And that's the good, the bad, the ugly. It's kind of like home ownership. We just had a washing machine leak that leaked in the laundry room. It leaked down into our basement. We had to rip up floors. And we had 2 days to get it all done before the new one came and to dry it all out. Yeah. Could I tell you that I loved that part of home ownership? Absolutely not. I can promise you, I do not love the part of cleaning the toilets. However, I like those things done. I like them clean. And so because we've chosen to own this home, we've chosen to own the maintenance and the repair that goes with it. And I think that is the same thing in our business. If we've chosen to start one, we have to own all of it. And if we don't like it and don't want to do it, we can easily take that talent and go work for someone else.
Exactly. Not everybody should be an entrepreneur. Not everybody should be a business owner. That's like saying everybody should have brown hair. That there's no should in this. It's what brings you joy, what brings you pleasure. If you really, really, really would love to spend your day designing and not managing the other parts of the business, then go design. But if you're going to have a business and you want to do some design, you're going to have to run the business profitably in order to always have another client in that pipeline, because you don't get referrals, you don't get repeat clients if you don't run nicely managed projects. It really doesn't matter how beautiful the room ends up. This is the real thing to understand. You can put together for somebody, a $150,000 living room, and it's absolutely AD worthy. But if that entire project was plagued by mismanagement, by invoices that were not correct, and at the end of it, you were not profitable and your clients were not happy with the process, you're not going to repeat that scenario with that client. That client isn't going to refer you. So that's, to me, that if you struggle to understand that the 20% is not the driver for your success, look at that analogy. Look at that analogy. If you put together a gorgeous room that no one can debate about it, but there isn't a single person attached to that, a vendor, a contractor, a homeowner that would do that process again with you, then you haven't created a business. You have not done, right?
Oh yeah. And I'll tell you what, you might see that picture showing up in Architectural Digest, but I can promise you it'll make your stomach hurt every time you look at it, because
Yes,
you remember
especially if
the
you didn't
pain
make any
around
money
it.
on it.
Exactly. And you have nothing to bring home to show for it. So, LuAnn, your tagline, you mentioned it a minute ago. Mine is the same kind of thing. Profit is a choice. It doesn't happen by accident. And yours is excellence is a decision. I'd love to hear where you first came up with the idea that excellence was a decision, or what happened in your life that formed that mindset and that belief system for you.
Well, I have to say, it's funny because everything is accumulation of your experiences, right? But
Mhm.
you didn't know that I was going to say this, but interestingly, it really was that story of when I was in ninth grade. And it was such a transformative experience for me. Basically, what happened was I had gone to a parochial grammar school for, K through 8, and went to a public high school. And when I went to the public high school, there was probably 110 kids in the class. And there was only about 7 or 8 of us, 6 or 7 or 8 of us, that went to the public high school, because most of our class went on to the Catholic high school, right? And so I come into this school, and of course, coming from a parochial school, there was basically a boys basketball team and a girls cheerleading team. Like, this was the extent of our activities. And I'm sort of a joiner and a doer and get my hands in everything type of a person. And so I get into the very first 2, 3, 4 days of high school, and we are just bombarded with there's ski club and there's sports teams and music teams and all these, organ, you know, organization after organization. And the one of the organizations was student government. And, I always joke with everybody, because at this point, really, honestly, Michelle, at 13 years old, I truly believed that I was going to be president of the United States one day.
I love that.
I mean, and I was just young enough and naive enough to not realize that even if I ever did all the schooling that required, I had no connections for this. But I was just young enough to think, hey, anything's possible in America. I could do this. And so, of course, joining student government was clearly something I had to do. If I was going to be president of the country someday, I had to at least have been president of my class or in student government. And so I'm all jazzed up, and I come home and I'm telling my parents, and they were sitting at the kitchen table, and I said, I'm going to run for the vice president of the freshman class, and it's student government and blah, blah, blah. And immediately my mother looks at me and she says, vice president, why not president? Like, that's my mother. To this day, that's my mother. What do you mean? And I said, well, I have no idea what a vice president does, or a president. I said, so I'm not going to go in and be president and then mess it up. I said, I'll be vice president for a year, figure out what's expected. And then next year I'll come out and I'll be president. And she's like, that's ridiculous. Nobody else knows how to be president. You should go be president. And so, which she is right, by the way. Right. And so I just looked at her. But as I went to say something something else to her, my father cuts in and he says, stop filling her head. Don't you dare tell her that she can be president or vice president or anything else. And Michelle, I have to tell you, it was very strange because my dad was a very quiet man. He rarely interjected in anything that had to do with our upbringing, right? And I'm not saying that in a negative way, but he was just
Sure.
very quiet, right? And he certainly was not the guy that would beat you down either, you know? So I looked at him like, what are you talking about? But before I can even speak, my mother, I'm telling you what, you want to talk about a mother bear coming after and protecting her cubs. She goes, what are you talking? Don't you dare talk to her like that. And they go back and forth. And I'm sitting there like, whoa. My mom, I mean, it was like you wrapped you stirred the cage. But he was adamant. And so I'm watching them argue, and all of a sudden my father looks at me and he says, okay, you know what? Enough of this. He goes, how many kids you figure are in your class? And I said, I don't know. Like they said, there's like 100 or 110 kids in the class. I don't know. He goes, exactly. He goes, and how many of your friends came with you from St. Pete's? And I'm like, well, it was me. Da, da, da. I don't know. 6 of us. He goes, my point. He goes, when are the elections? I go, they're next Tuesday or next Monday they are, whatever they are, like in a week. And he goes, okay, seriously, 6 kids. There's another 108, 110, whatever it is. He goes, you don't have a chance. This has nothing to do with me thinking you're capable, whether it's president, vice president. He goes, it's actually just impossible for anybody to vote for you because they don't know who you are. And so my mother she wouldn't give into that. She just went off and she was like, that's ridiculous. You don't ever tell her not to try. But as they went back and forth, I sat there and I looked at it and I'm thinking to myself, he's right. Like he's right. This is craziness. And so the thing, Michelle, was that that night, I was, I'm 13 years old. I'm that mix of I'm disappointed, but I have enough recognition to know that what my father is saying. But, my mom's in my ear and she always has been in my ear. And that's when I say it's accumulation of your experiences, because she has always, always said to me, if not you, who? Why do you think somebody else could do it if you can't do it? Like if you think you can't do it, then who's going to do it? And so both things are in my ear, in my ear, in my ear. And I got up in the morning and I just made a decision that I was going to be class president. I wasn't going to be vice president. I was going to be class president. And that's what it was, Michelle. I made a decision. Now, the thing is, the decision needed a plan. It couldn't just be this pie in the sky. Hey, let me write it on the chalkboard and it's going to happen. So I went every single day for the next 5 or 6 days, and every single person I walked by in the hallway between classes, I literally would stop them. Hey, excuse me. Are you in the freshman class? Are you in the freshman class? Are you in the freshman class? And if they said yes, I said, oh, okay, I'm LuAnn Schwartz and I'm running for class president. And you don't know me because I went to St. Pete's, but I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to be an amazing class president. Nobody's going to work harder than me. Vote for me and I'm going to make it worth your while. I promise you I'll do a good job. And if they said no, I'd be like, oh, well, do you have a brother or a sister in the freshman class? I was steadfast on this. I was intent. I made a decision. And the following week, I became president of the freshman class. And so that was the beginning of understanding the power of literally having that look in the mirror and deciding that this is up to me. This is my choice to do something or not do something. And so every day in business, it's the same thing. It's like, do I really want my marketing plan to work, or do I just kind of want it to work over there and somebody to work on it for me, right? Like, do I really want to look at my profit and loss on every job and do what I call the autopsy on a job and really say, are we being profitable? Or am I just going to ride it out for a couple of years, and if I have money at the end of the year and a couple of years, maybe I'll say this was a good run. Right? It's a decision, right, Michelle?
It is. And there are a couple of things here that are just like screaming in my head. The fact that your mother said, if not you, who?
It's so clear in my head. To this day, she says
so clear. I wrote it down. If not you, who? I think that's a great one. And then I think the other thing that is really just screaming in my head is this wasn't a decision. This was a group of decisions. right? Because the first decision was, I'm going to run. But then that made you have to make the next decision. I'm going to be willing to put myself out there to 110 people I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that takes a lot of courage.
Especially at 13 years old.
Right. And like, could we find a more awkward stage?
I was the geekiest kid on the planet. And to this day, I'm just like, okay, whatever. This is it. That's I live in that space. It's fine.
It's fine. That's right. And then another decision, right? It's a compounding of decisions. And I think so often, to your point, when you said you don't just get to make a decision, I'm going to be profitable, and then just let it go. That's why I think the profit is a choice, kind of premise is it's a daily decision, because everything is compounding. Just like they say, what is it, that compound interest is like the eighth wonder of the world, because it's an accumulation, an amalgamation of a lot of smaller decisions that in the moment we may not think matter, but ultimately they do. You have a book out, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, Turn Inspiration into Action, and I'll make sure that it is in the show notes. But I underlined what you said on page 4. You said, and after you've told the story, so I can read it now, it'll make sense. It says, you need to be a little like my mother, with unwavering confidence in yourself, in your product, in your service. And then you need to be like my dad, with eyes wide open, facing the obstacles, looking out for the pitfalls. And then you need to be like me, make a plan, a detailed roadmap to achieve your goals. Think about it. Confidence and goals without a plan won't get you anywhere. But a plan and goals without confidence won't work either. You need all three, and then you need to decide. Decide to be excellent, because make no mistake about it, excellence is a decision.
Yeah, that's it.
What do you think are the barriers or challenges to excellence? I mean, I think one, just from reading that and doing a quick extrapolation, is confidence. Not having the confidence either in the product, the service, the approach, and ourself, and the systems that we have supporting us. I mean, that's a big one that I see in my coaching practice, and I know you do as well. But what other barriers and challenges to excellence do you think we struggle with in the interior design industry?
I think what it is that often, not always, there's never an always, right?
Agreed.
Right. But often when an individual is not successful, whether it's in their business, in a relationship, in an exercise program, whatever it is, there is a level of being, unaccountable to yourself, of telling yourself things that aren't true, of, what's the word, like, copping out. It's like you can say, how many people join a gym and don't walk through the door? You have to, like you said, you have to make one decision, and then you have to make another decision, and you have to compound them every day. And I feel like so often when someone isn't successful, it's because they're not willing to actually own the fact that they are dropping the ball. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a little ball or a big ball. And most entrepreneurs won't drop the big balls. And that's why they kid themselves in that it's just so hard to be in business, and the whole world is against me, and it's the economy, and it's this, and my vendor dropped the ball, and my vendor this, and my vendor that. But the reality is that it always, I don't care if your vendor delivers the wrong product. There was a spot somewhere along that way that you didn't double check something, or you didn't, there is a way to make sure that the mistake isn't made. Okay. And the not me, and it's not my fault, I find that to be, along with confidence, the two biggest barriers to being a successful business owner is not monitoring and not tracking the profitability, because it's not my fault. I don't know how to do it. And a lot of those things don't happen because you don't, like you said, enjoy and feel confident in doing it. So you don't do it at all. Right?
Right. I have a couple of rules for who I will and will not work with. So, because I know who my ideal client is, the same way that we instruct others to know who your ideal client is, know your niche market. And, one of my deal breakers is if they whine and complain and tell me that it's everybody else's fault. So on our 15 to 20-minute conversation, they tell me something went wrong in the business. And I said, who owns that? I guess I'm now giving everybody a heads up to the cheat answer. But if they tell me anybody other than themselves, I question whether I want to work with them, because we should recognize any problem, any issue, any success, everything good, everything bad falls on the shoulders of the owner of the company, period. And
it's the truth.
And so if we can't own that, you can't fix it. You can't change it. But the minute you say, those are my numbers, those are my hours, those are my, that is my marketing plan. Now, it didn't work for me. It didn't support me where I want to go. Now tell me how to change it. I can work with that all day long. I can that is a coachable spirit. But if somebody comes in and, like you said, they want to tell me how it was a bad vendor, well, who chose the vendor? It was a bad receiver. Well, who chose the receiver? I mean, seriously, can't you back that up and see that you're the common denominator? And so just owning it. And it is so refreshing to speak to a business owner that says, my business is falling apart and it's all my fault, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix it. Because that's somebody who's invested, and I would work with that all day long over a cocky, I've been in this magazine and on this TV show, and things aren't going together, but it's everybody else's fault.
Right. Well, the biggest thing about it is that you said it in there. If you aren't taking credit for where it's broken, how can you even be part of the solution in fixing it? Right?
You can't.
I mean, that's just it. So it's like, it's actually an absurd thing as the primary owner of your business to even say the sentence, well, I'm not profitable because this, and it's not my fault. Because then what is it? Should we go out and ask the squirrels outside? Because who's going to fix this? If you didn't make the problem, why are you the one here fixing? How are we going to fix it? Because you apparently don't have enough ability, power, or influence or authority to make it broken. So how can you make it fixed? So you really do have to be accountable. And I'm the same way. Everybody, I do the same thing. We have the 20-minute pre-chat if you want to coach with me, and honest to God, I'm like, well, this ain't gonna work, because as soon as you're that person, it's not my fault, or it's I agree with you 100%. I what I say to designers, right? You finding your ideal client, because the process of designing for that client is joyful, and the resolution of the room and the space is gorgeous, and the whole thing is great. Well, it's the same thing. I want every designer that I coach to, at the end of it, say that was amazing. And it can't be if the whole time I'm thinking you're an idiot and you're not taking accountability for yourself. Right. Or it's not going to be a good process for that designer.
Or if every single thing you suggest, they tell you why it won't work.
Yeah. You know what I always say, don't be the not me girl, because I don't want to talk to the not me girl. That won't work for me. Not me. That won't work for me. No, I'm sorry, sweetie. It works for everybody. Just do it.
Just do it. I know. And I do think that, making these decisions, a decision to be profitable, a decision to be excellent, a decision to have great customer service, these things, that they seriously just do not happen by accident. And I think I would much rather have a smaller company that was very
well run.
Yes, just very intent, I guess, is what I would say. They have intention about what they want to do, what they want to create, and how they want to put it in the world. And then they have a plan to do it. And they have metrics to see if it's actually happening. It's not enough to say you want to do it. Like, for example, it wasn't enough to say you wanted to be president. There had to be a vote. There had to be some metrics to support it. You couldn't just self-proclaim on Tuesday of the next week, hi, my name's LuAnn Schwartz, and now I'm your president. I'm self-appointed. Right? There had to be metrics. There had to be some measurement that came in to say yes or no.
Exactly.
And that's the piece that I think is important. So how do you think we measure excellence in a company?
Well, I mean, that's a loaded question, because I honestly know that there are all kinds of versions of what someone's ideal company is, just like there are all kinds of designers and people and everything else on the planet once it's profitable, right? So for instance, what I'm saying is, if it's a company and it's not profitable, guess what? Newsflash, it's actually not a company, it's a hobby. Okay. So when you say what, contributes to it, what makes it excellent, if we establish the ground level that if it's a company, then it must also be profitable. If we say that's our premise, beyond that, what makes an excellent company? I think there's a lot that can be formed by your own individual culture. Our company at WindowWorks is a company that our core values are integrity and 110% customer satisfaction. There's nothing that we won't do in order to make a customer right. Okay. But then you take Google. Well, maybe their core values and what makes their company excellent is that they have sleep pods and, people have flex hours and they can work at 2 a.m. till 6 a.m. if you like. So I think excellence has the potential to be branded to yourself, right? Like you have that ability as an entrepreneur to decide for yourself what is an excellent company for you, that you work every day from 10 o'clock in the morning till 2:30 in the afternoon and you are with your children after school every single day. Or is an excellent company for you that you work Monday through Thursday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday you go to your beach house. You see, I think that when you talk about excellence, it becomes now what feeds your soul and your person as the business owner, in addition to, and assuming that the base level is that the team is well managed, that the company is profitable, and that the goods and services are quality, right?
Right. And then excellence can, in that light, almost take on some of the characteristics of success. What is success for you? Because
Good point.
right?
Good point.
In my company, I define excellence. I'm like you. I've got core values, mission statement, vision statement. I know my why. It's been the same, since I figured it out 10 years ago. And my entire company is built around those things. I also know my strengths. I love Strengths Finder. And I know my top 5 strengths. They're maximizer, achiever, relator, strategic, and self-assurance. I know them. I've built my marketing around those things. I've built my business around what I'm strong in and what I'm excellent in. So therefore, if I'm working in my strength, working in my skill, doing a business that I love, that I created, that I've also gone back, I have my own business coach. I have my own accountant. I'm holding myself accountable to myself and to others, because that just keeps raising the bar of excellence. I know that I want everybody that works with me to walk away feeling like they got more than they paid for. Every
Exactly.
single time. I don't want to ever work with anybody who thinks, oh my gosh, she was really holding back, or she wasn't giving that to me because I didn't, pay to do whatever. I don't want that. It's equivalent to your 110%. And then one of the things that you mentioned in your book, and I think has a great big bearing on excellence, is loyalty. Because, I'm a relationship kind of gal, and I know you are too. We've talked about that. And in my sales process, I'm not just trying to sell a number. I would prefer not to just sell something. I would prefer to form a relationship and solve a problem. That's just where my heart is. It's the way my business is. I'm not out there just selling whatever. And so because of that, when people work with me, it goes, and with you, it goes back to the know, like, trust conversation. When they know you, they like you, they trust you, they spend money. Well, now when you've met that need that they have, you've solved their problem with, like you said, 110% satisfaction, my abundance mentality of giving you more than you've paid for, it forms this loyalty bond. And then you become loyal to that client. The client becomes loyal to you. And I know you've talked about that in your book and on your podcast. And you even said on page 93 in your book, serve your clients well and do your very best by them, and you'll be rewarded with loyalty. And you said that was an aha moment for you, because again, it was a culmination of many years of staying the steady course. And when we talk about excellence and choices, I think it is realizing sometimes that you don't always see the end. You just have to keep your head down and be committed to the journey, that it's going to happen. And I think that was part of your aha in that time, wouldn't you say?
It absolutely was. And it has become one of the things that I will say I probably bring up in 4 out of 5 times when I'm at a live speaking event is to recognize, as difficult as it is when you're in the first year, the first 5 years, the first 10 years, the first 15 years of business, the first 20 years of business, there are so many times, instances, days that turn into weeks, weeks that turn into months that are so hard, that you really have anything from a moment that something went terribly wrong to a series of 5 or 6 months where the challenge just seems insurmountable, whatever it might be, a financial challenge, a personnel challenge, a vendor challenge, whatever it might be. But the thing I learned is that if you do stick to what your mission is, if you do stick to your values, if you do continue every single day, day in and day out, decide to run your business the right way, the profitable way, the way with intention, the way that illustrates and aligns with who you are as a human being, you do get to that moment. I had as an aha moment based on a conversation with a customer that day. But I want you to understand that here I am almost nearly 4 decades in business, and the payout is so worth it. When I get up in the morning and I have my window works appointments ahead of me for the coming week, if I have 6, 7, 8 appointments ahead of me, better than 3/4 of them are with repeat clients. If it's not the client themselves, they've been referred by the client, or it's the child of a client. And that's just an incredible thing to experience, to know that you have created a business, that you have stuck to your core values, that you look across at your whether it's your team, your partners, whoever it is, and you think, we did it every single day, decision one at a time, compounding day after day, and it's worth it at the end. You can't jump ship. If you're really meant to do it well, and don't give up on it.
One of my new favorite books is 212, The Extra Degree.
Hmm.
Have you seen that one? You've got to.
Now,
All right. We got to give you that book. It's a tiny little book. It's teeny tiny. And here's what it says. It says at 211 degrees, water is hot. At 212 degrees, water boils. Boiling water creates steam, and steam powers a locomotive.
wow.
Go the extra degree. I mean, you could almost stop the book with that, right? But
Right.
the conversation that is in that book that I think is so important is that we have to be fully committed to the journey to gain the outcome that we want, not just to the outcome. Because if we are only committed to the outcome, then the minute it doesn't happen, we become discouraged and we quit. So let's say that I think I used this on another conversation. Let's say I wanted to have this buff body. Okay, but if I'm only committed to that, I'm not committed to the journey to get that. Well, after I've been to the gym for a week, when I don't start seeing the changes that I think should have occurred, I can give up. But if I'm committed to doing whatever it takes to get the buff body, I recognize that it's kind of a little more of a marathon, not a sprint, right? A little more of a quest we're on here. And for some of us more than, others, it takes a while, right? I
Right.
hate working out. I hate it. I know I need to do it. I hate it. I would rather just work. I would. I'm a nerd that way. Give me a profit and loss statement, an income statement, and a set of tax forms, and I would do that over going to the gym any day. But if what I want is a healthy body, I have to be committed to the process. And I think that's what happens in business is many of us want to have, I always hear this number, I want $100,000. I want to make $100,000, but they're not committed to every single thing that it takes to get the $100,000. And so when it doesn't come, they're frustrated and irritated. And I know one of the things that I push, and of course, my degree in college and my first 10 years was about building financial software and systems. And you talk about systems a lot in your book. How do you think systems put us in a position to be excellent?
Oh my goodness.
I know that was a loaded question, wasn't
well,
it?
but they're just everything. The systems are everything. Oh my goodness, they're just, if you don't have a system, you don't, I say it all the time. If you don't have a system, you have you don't have a business. A system is something that you teach your first employee when they onboard. A system is something that employee turns around and teaches the one behind them. A system is something that enables you to scale so that multiple people in your business can do the same thing that you do. A system is the thing that ultimately makes your business sellable one day. Right? Because if
Right.
you run your firm every day, you're a solo entrepreneur, you have 3 people working for you, you run your firm every day for 12, 15, 20 years. And even if you are profitable, right, you actually can show money in the bank statement. Some miracle way you may manage to do it, right? But you can't sit and say, this is exactly how we answer the telephone. This is exactly how we accept the payments. This is exactly how we process purchase order. This is exactly how we run a project. This is exactly how we exit a project. This is exactly how we track and monitor and autopsy the project. When somebody comes in and looks at your business, it's like, so how do you run your business? Well, Monday I kind of do this, Tuesday I sort of do that. That's not a business. That's a you. Right? So you have to develop systems, because the systems are the fail safes. The systems are the things that keep you going when the going gets tough. And they're the things that help you look and monitor to know when you think it's at the worst. What if you were to look at your profit and loss statement? What if you were to look at your autopsy of your individual project jobs and say, oh, I'm actually doing pretty good. You might save yourself from jumping off a cliff, for crying out loud. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
I do. Yesterday, I actually had a coaching call, and my design client was, having some struggles and just kind of feeling like, she wasn't making what she thought she wanted to make. And I said, hold on a minute. Did you look at, I always have their income statements run from January through wherever we are. And I had hers through July. I said, did you really look at that? Did you look at this? And go down and look at the total amount here. And she went down and she said, wait, that's my number? I'm like, yes, that is your number. And you have earned 67% of our sales goal by July. So if you continue as you're going to be over the yearly goal that you already thought was a stretch, that I told you, girl, buckle down. You can go do that.
Yes.
I said, you've already reached 67% of it. But because she hadn't looked at she'd been so overwhelmed with the work, she didn't take a step back and look at the financial statements that she was sent until our coaching call. And she did. She stepped back and she's like, well, dang, I'm doing a really good job. I'm like, yes,
well, right. And that's the point. If you hadn't helped her, if she hadn't already instituted a system for tracking her profit and loss, how could she even know? It's a guess. And
there's
so
no way.
it's a non-negotiable.
It's
a
a non-negotiable.
And it's from the most minute task to the most complex task. There is a way that you do it, and that's how it gets done in your company by everybody. Not, there's 4 people that work for me and we all do everything whichever way we feel like doing. N-O, ixnay on that.
But excellence, what excellence to me means is repeatability.
Exactly,
and so
right.
having that system, I use this analogy all the time. My favorite meal is shrimp and grits. So if anybody wants to invite me over for shrimp and grits, I'm going to get on a plane and come see you. I've eaten my way through South Georgia and South Carolina eating shrimp and grits. If you haven't had it, don't knock it till you've tried it. Come to the South. It's excellent. But everybody makes it differently. There are, it's like spaghetti. There are 5,000 recipes for spaghetti. Okay, so if I were to tell you, LuAnn, this Village Tavern has the best shrimp and grits. You have got to go there and order it. And you go there and order it, and they have an off day, right? You're going to now question everything that I've sent you there to try. You're not going to trust me. And you're going to think that, what are you eating? That is disgusting. And so they have to stay consistent with what they're putting out there for somebody else to feel comfortable referring you. And it is the same in our businesses. There is nothing worse. When I used to teach window treatment courses, I would say to them, there is no way that they want to hire you to be their fabricator. And every time you put fabric on the table, you decide to make the panel different. And so you have panels with it that's different in every room of the home based on how you felt that day. That's insane. They want to know that when they order from you, if it's the same thing, that it is going to be constructed the same way as much as absolutely possible for every room. They need to be able to count on the deliverable. And that's what systems allow. I know you and I both were out on Facebook earlier today, and there's questions on, I'm so overwhelmed. When should I hire? But if there are no systems in place, that's the worst time to hire because everybody's disgruntled, everybody's unhappy. There's no way to train them because you're so overwhelmed. I mean, I've done that. I literally know better, and I've done it. And I will tell you, it's horrible. And so now, I know if I'm going to have the system, I'm going to have a template, I'm going to have it written down, the expectations, everything. There should be no question.
Right. Well, and I just want to add one thing to what you just said there. You said, I've done that. I know better, right? This is the thing I need for everyone listening to understand that you're 20 years in business. I'm almost 40 years in this business. And the reason why we are so adamant and the reason why we're so, this is how it is because we have made these same mistakes. I will speak for myself. I have made them mistakes, right? And so that's the thing. This is not born of do as I say, not as I do. This is born of holy moly. Can I save you some of the heartache that I've experienced? And when I reflect and look back and understand, that was what my whole book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, was. It was literally a reflection back of why is WindowWorks so successful? Why are we standing here 4 decades later when I have watched window treatment company after window treatment company go out of business in a 15, 20-mile radius of me? I really started to contemplate when that one, customer pointed out to me, and I had my aha moment when what happened was I had thanked her, and I thank every customer because you know what? They have a choice every day, just like I do. They have a choice. They could call somebody else. And so as at the end of our meeting, I say what I always say, it was great visiting with you again. Please be sure to tell your kids or this or whatever the personal connection is. And I say, and I really just have to thank you for always remembering us and calling us back when you have another project. And this woman just like went off. She was like, are you kidding me? She goes, why would you? Don't be ridiculous. Of course I'm calling WindowWorks. You people are the best. She goes, your installers are the best. You and your husband are amazing. The people you have working for you, the product that you do, your attention to detail. And I'm watching her and she's just like, stop. There's nowhere else to go. And that was when it hit me, right? It really hit me that it's the compilation of, at that moment, I went, wow. And then for the next 5 years, I kept noticing that the compliments and hearing them as opposed to just like, oh, that's nice and not paying attention. I started to hear and notice the exact things that people said why they did business with us. And that's when I finally said, you know what? These are the absolute pillars. These are the tenets. These are the exact reasons for our success. I want to share this with people. I want to tell them, do it like this and it will work for you. So it's not that we did it that way the whole time. We made our mistakes along the way. But at that point in business, that was probably 20, 25 years in business. It was like, oh, we finally have this locked down.
I know. Again, I worked corporate. I've bought and sold companies, worked with partners, been by myself. And I still learn every single day. I'm still learning. And sometimes I'll do something and all of a sudden I'll think to myself, wait a minute, why am I doing that? What is the thought behind that? I think you were the one who wrote out on that Facebook post, sometimes when we, or it may have even been in your book, we do things out of desperation. I don't want to have my business run out of desperation. I want my business run from a place of strength because that's what provides excellence and ownership and all of those pieces. I know we both share a love for the book E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And, whether we ever choose to be a franchise or not, that franchise model is shared with us with the understanding that it's systems based.
Exactly.
And I'll tell you, there's a new book out that just came out last week by Mike Michalowicz called Clockwork. Yeah, it's really good. I was a pre-reader for it. But it is a really great book. And it talks about, and not just talks about, it gives you charts and ideas on how to create systems in your business.
Oh, that's
so
nice.
that you can step away and have the business run for you like clockwork.
That's nice.
Really, really great book that is very similar to E-Myth, but even with more detail in some ways.
Very good. I'm going to have to get that one. I'll tell you what, a couple of weeks ago, Laura Umansky, she's an interior designer in, I want to say Dallas and Colorado. I forget where everybody is these days, but she's got 2 locations. And she mentioned a book to me, Rocket Fuel. And so I got it on Audible. I'm only a couple of chapters in, but it reminds me of the E-Myth. They talk about the innovator and the integrator and the different roles and the way you need to think. And I say it all the time on my podcast that I'm very, very fortunate at Window Works. Vin, myself, and Billy are literally the 3 people of the E-Myth. Billy is the technician. He's our lead installer. I say it all the time without any compunction whatsoever. I would put him against any installer in the country. He just is so talented and creative and an out-of-the-box thinker when it comes to solving problems on the install for window treatments and awnings. And then my husband is, quite frankly, he's the manager. He's the one who is monitoring the money and, playing the chess game of it's time to buy, it's time that, to get a van, it's not time, it's this and that and the other thing, monitoring the day-to-day actions. And I'm the entrepreneur brain. Now, I don't happen to love that he calls that role the entrepreneur. In the Rocket Fuel, they call it the innovator. And I'm the one that's always big picture. I've said it multiple times. We had a website at one point back in the 90s because I said we should have a website. We were still literally using the telephone book at that point. But I heard about the websites and the internet, and people were starting to do business on the internet. And my husband's looking at me like, you're out of your mind. We don't need a website. I'm like, no, I think we do, and then, every little thing that we've done, we need a podcast. Let's have a podcast. The podcast has grown the Window Works business like exponentially. In its 36th year, we're heading toward our highest gross sales year ever. And a lot of it is, quite frankly, directly rated right back to the podcast. And so, but who starts a podcast to market their business? Like you're looking out of the box for solutions, right? And so we're very fortunate. And when I coach designers, they often say, well, I don't have a Vinny. I don't have that other personality. But that's when you have to reach out to people like you, Michelle, who are a coach that specializes in the money management and teaching you your finances so that you can have that grasp of understanding for yourself, even though it's not your strength and your skill set. So, and when I coach designers, I don't coach them on that. I mean, I can do big picture coaching on profit and all of that stuff, but I have my wheelhouse. You know what I'm saying? So
exactly.
It's
but I think that's so important, LuAnn. We don't have to know it all. But
no.
What we do have to recognize is what we need. Yes. And then we either hire, we subcontract, we educate, or we bring in, just help for a time period so that we can keep doing it. But not doing it and refusing to do anything about it because we think we can't, that's the decision that will cripple us.
Exactly.
So let me ask this. What are you doing to put yourself in a position to be successful, profitable, and excellent going forward?
Well, it's more like, what am I not doing? Right. Like, it's just, right. Honestly, we have literally, we have an Excel spreadsheet on the podcast. Every single dime that I've spent related to the podcast, that whether it's been through services hired or platforms purchased in order to run different systems, events that we run and that they cost money, every single thing, every single expense is listed. And then every single ounce of revenue that's come in that's related directly to the podcast is there. So on a daily basis, it's about tracking. It's like you said, there's no reason to not know. Whether you know how to know or not is not the reason to not know. Okay. And so on a regular daily basis, to me, it's about making sure that what I do each day is in alignment with the success of the podcast, which the podcast could be successful emotionally. right? The podcast could be successful emotionally. It could be a very rewarding thing to do. It actually is a very rewarding thing to do emotionally. It's very rewarding from the standpoint of building relationships and having met so many fantastic and wonderful people. But the simple fact is that it probably takes me, no joke, 40 hours a week to get the podcast, to get 2 shows out the door and all the corollary things that goes with what the podcast is creating. So, if I'm going to work an 80-hour work week, which is what I'm working, that 40 hours of the podcast, it has to be profitable. It's not a hobby, right?
Exactly.
So I don't know. What am I doing to be profitable?
I think all of it,
I'm
though.
Something as good as I can do, so that it's constantly attracting more and more people. The more people it attracts, the more sponsors it attracts, the more speaking engagement it attracts. Like, it's all the metrics. It's no different than what is a designer doing to be profitable? Well, they're keeping up with their CEUs and their actual education and their talent and their skills, and what's available in the marketplace, and what the trends are, and what the design and it's what's innovative in design. But it's also then tracking and making sure the projects are well run and their vendors are A-team vendors, and yada, yada, yada. So I don't know. I'm not sure what you wanted to know there.
No, that's it exactly. But I want to go back to 2 things that I think are the crux of all of that. And one is that you're working in alignment with who you are and what you believe. Because I really think it is difficult to be excellent, successful, and profitable long-term when we're working outside of alignment. And that's why I see a lot of young business people trying to be what they think other people want them to be. And if I could just free them up to say, go be you, as what's that saying? Everybody else is taken. Just go be you, right? And then build the business on you and on your pillars and your values and your strengths, because that ultimately to me leads to my joy and leads to my success and puts me in a position to be profitable, versus taking an opportunity that maybe was never really meant to be mine, doesn't play up on my strengths, right? Everything kind of falls through that filter. And that's what I really kind of hear you saying too. And in some ways, it almost becomes second nature to us when we've done it so long. So we don't stop and think, oh, how can I put myself in a position? We just are in a consistent position to be profitable.
Well, and that's sort of goes back to what I said in the beginning, is if you don't like the process that's required to be accountable for having a profitable business, but you love designing, that's okay. It's so okay. I mean, I am jazzed every day by running Window Works with my family and running this podcast. I am literally jazzed. Like, my husband has to look at me and go, sweet Jesus, LuAnn, it's 10:30 at night. Would you just stop? And I'm like, well, maybe just another half hour. I'm not resenting it. I'm not like saying, oh my goodness, this day is never ending. It is something that I love to do. I love to help people be profitable. I love to strategically figure out what I have to do next. I love to constantly take assessment and say, okay, so what's the next quarter going to look like? This was the goal from the beginning of the year. Am I on track? What have I pivoted on? What have I put aside and not done? What can I lean into and do better? I always say to my friends, my family, if anybody ever put a tape player on the inside of my brain in the morning when I open my eyes and recorded it for the day, you'd put me in a straitjacket. I know you would.
Actually, I would be in the room with you. I tell people all the time, it is a scary place in there.
It's insane. It's like, but it's energizing, right?
Oh, absolutely. I told my husband the other day, I said, I have 2 favorite times of the day. And he looked at me kind of weird. I'm like, yeah, I really think this way. I said, the minute my alarm goes off in the morning, I am awake. My brain is going. I cannot wait to get out of that bed, to get downstairs, to get my cup of coffee, to have my quiet time, and then to go to work. I literally am chomping at the bit. And when I am really in creative mode, he's been laughing at me that I've been staying in the bed till 6 a.m. the last few days, when I've had a whole week of getting up at 4:15 to come downstairs because I was so excited to get to work. I just kept waking up 2 hours early to come down to get it done. But it didn't feel like work to me, right? It felt like excitement to me, like I was creating, and I can't work like that all the time for years on end, but I do have spurts that I do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy it. I enjoy it.
It's the same. I agree. When I had first come up with the idea of the podcast in July, I first had the bug to podcast July of 2015. And then by September, I was focused on what the concept and the idea would be. But from the moment I had the bug to do it, I quite literally was up every single day at 6 o'clock in the morning, which was an hour and a half early for me at that point in my life. And at the dining room table, researching podcasts and researching this and researching what would it look like and what would be the focus and what would be the mission statement and who would the guests be and how would I set it up and how do I actually do it and what is a microphone for a podcast. I mean, I did that for probably 18 months at 6 o'clock in the morning every
Hmm.
single day. And it was the
Right.
same thing. I loved it.
Right. I hear you. I did the same thing. So, LuAnn, you and I have a fun opportunity coming up on
Yeah.
October the 13th. Why don't you tell everybody about it and maybe they can join us?
I'm so excited, Michelle. I have to say, we are doing our second stop on the Power Talk Friday Experts Tour, the Power Talk Friday Tour of Experts. And basically, Michelle has been on my show as a Power Talk Friday expert talking about profit first. And we have two things that are happening that's in conjunction with this that I would love to share with everybody. The first is that my second book is coming out, and it is no longer my second book. It is now our book. So what I've decided, my second book, and it's funny because we just mentioned how from July until I launched in February that I was planning every single morning the ins and outs of the podcast. And part of that plan was, how would I monetize this podcast? What would be the different revenue streams? And there were always 3 books planned for that process. I knew from before I even launched that there would be 3 books at minimum. And I did the first book. The goal was to have the first book out. And then the second book, I always believed, because I knew then that I would have the Power Talk Friday, and I knew then that I would use the phrase, the things I learned from Michelle Williams, the things I learned from Fred Burns. And so I knew the second book was going to be the things I learned from. And I thought it would be the Power Talk Friday Experts. And the reality is that when I finished the first book and I turned my attention to the second book, I started to say, okay, go back all through the podcast, all your Power Talk Friday experts, collate into categories the different things about the business and of each of a designer's firm that they teach, and now go and write your chapter based on what they do and what they taught us. And then as I started to do it, I said, this is ridiculous. What I'm going to sit there and tell everybody what these experts know in their core. I'm going to regurgitate it. This isn't as good for my reader. This isn't as quality for my reader, for me to just put my spin on what their zone of genius is. So instead, I decided to ask my Power Talk Friday experts if they'd like to be in the book and each have their own chapter. And Michelle has a chapter in the book. And to support my Power Talk Friday experts that are in the book, we have this corollary, which is the Power Talk Friday tour. And we did the first tour in Las Vegas in the summer of 2018. And we had 3 speakers from the book. It was Nancy Ganskaufer, Mark McDonough, my husband Vince, and Sarah McDaniele. We had 4 speakers. And the idea, Michelle, of the Power Talk Friday tour with the experts is so that each of you get to bring your brilliance out to the designers who are in need of it and are craving it and can benefit from it. But the thing is, I know, look, you're a speaker too, Michelle, and you'll get up in front of 500 people and give a wham bam thing just like I like to do, right? That's a fun experience.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a place for that, right? That's both yours and my wheelhouse. It's the bigger, the better, exciting, right?
Right.
But there is a place for, I felt like when I evaluated the podcast, I know from conversations that I have with designers that they have notebooks filled with ideas and things that they are supposed to be doing from the things that they've learned on my podcast. They tell me, they write to me, they email me. I have my own notebook just for a well-designed business, and I have listen lists. And what I say is, and what are you doing with the lists? And then if there's time for an in-depth conversation, depending on the venue, it's, well, I really know I should be doing this, but I'm not sure how. And so my brain started to say, how can we add the next layer of value? And the only way to do that is with small groups. So the Power Talk Friday tour is always going to be limited to a very small amount of interior designers. Las Vegas, we had 8 designers in the room. We had 8 designers and 5 experts. It was amazing. And we had one-on-one time with each of the experts, with each of the designers. We had presentations. We end the day with a celebration dinner at a private room in a restaurant. We had sponsors for it. The sponsors joined us for dinner. Michelle, I am so excited to share this with you because you are going to love it. But what I'm telling your listeners and the designers out there is that this is money well spent. This is something, when I was planning it for Las Vegas, I was telling everybody what I hoped it would be like, what my vision for it would be like. Now I am very confidently telling you what it is like. It is one of the most powerful opportunities that you will have as a business owner, to be in a room with your peers who understand the struggles that you go with, but then to have leaders in the room like Michelle, Stacy Brown Randall, and Claire Jefford, Sarah Daniele, myself, and my husband, to have these people in a room who just, you bring your notebook of questions and say, I get the concept that you talked about on the podcast, but I don't know how to translate it for my particular business. It's, I'm sorry I'm going on like this but I'm so passionate about it, and I'm so convinced of its value. If you saw the text messages, the emails that I got from the designers that participated last time, it was really a remarkable event, and I'm really looking forward to having it again in High Point.
You know, I hear the excitement, I hear the passion, and I love it. And I feel passionate the same way, because there's one thing about hearing a group message, but there's something else about having an expert invested in your success with their message and helping you literally implement it in your business, and having that one-to-one, face-to-face conversation. It's undeniable, the power of that moment. And so I am super excited about being there. And of course, I will be talking all about numbers and financials. And I mean, I think it'd be hard for me to have any conversation that didn't touch on that.
And the thing is, Vin does that too, right? And so it's going to be awesome. The both of you are there with different sets of expertise on it and different ideas. And of course, the same ideas, but I shouldn't say different. I know for a fact from talking to you and my husband that your principles and ideals on monitoring, tracking, and understanding your financials are the same. It's just that sometimes you hear it one way from some person and you unlock something that you didn't notice in the way the other person said it, right? But when we had this last one in Vegas, I had designers that any designer that signs up, I call them up and I say, thank you so much for, signing up for the Power Talk Friday tour. Tell me, what's your number one goal? What are you hoping to reach? And 2 of them said, I know your husband's going to be there and I really need to understand my financials. And so I said, well, if you really want to know that, then you bring your tax return, you bring your profit and loss statement, you bring it with you, and he will sit down and help you make sense of it and help you reach a goal based on it. And that's the thing. I love nothing more than to get in front of a group and rile them and make them feel good about themselves and make them see the potential and make them understand, like my mother said, if not you, who? But there is something really, really incredible about being able to ask not 1, but 3, 4, 5, 6 questions that are just about your business. And you leave with a plan, not just a rah-rah feeling and a bullet point list of, ideas.
Right. Here are the 5,000 things I need to go back and do when I have time. I'm excited, and the information is on your website, LuAnnNagara.com. and you can find it under events and coaching and hit right there and be able to register. I also will put a link to that in the show notes. In addition, I'll put a link to my online course, Understanding Your Financials. That course is great. It teaches how to read an income statement, a balance sheet, how to create a budget. It goes through how to find out what your taxes say and back it up, how to create a goal and a plan, and what to measure and when to measure it. So
I love it.
It is just a lot of detail. So again, there's no reason to say I don't understand my financials when there's a course and there's a Power Talk live event, multiple ways that you can learn this. And so please take advantage of that.
That's it. And then when this book comes out, Michelle, this is going to be the go-to book for the industry, because we are going to have, 10, 12, 14 chapters. It's going to end up being on just you guys doing what you do well and explaining it and making it actionable. So I'm so excited for this book launch to come out next year in 2019.
Yeah, me too. When I wrote my chapter, I had to write mine a little early because I do have some Profit First conversation. And then I sent it over to Mike McAllowitz, and I sent it through Penguin because I had to have all of them approve what I was saying before I could even put it through your set of editors. And so, I know it's just the whole book is going to be rich with information. And you'll have to come back on, and we'll have to do a great big celebration and party with the book.
Yes, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Well, LuAnn, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you so much for all that you have offered to us. I really appreciate your time.
I have to tell you, Michelle, I wish you every success with this podcast. I'm sure it's going to be a game changer for the industry, and I'm so lucky to know you and lucky to call you my friend. So thank you for having me on your show.
You're very welcome. And everybody, please go out to iTunes and leave a review. I will send a Profit First book to the first 10 people who review this podcast on iTunes. So go out there and show us some podcast love.
Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of LuAnn Nigara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or LuAnn University, go to LuAnnNigara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to WindowWorksNJ.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.